And that's why I'm not going to wait for next week, next pay-per-view, next Christmas. I want them right here, right now.
Wow.
That's why I'm calling out the baddest man on the planet. Le Champion is waiting for you, man. I want the baddest man on the planet to come out here right now. Come on, where's the baddest man on the planet, huh? We're right here, baddest man. Where are ya? Are you scared? I'm gonna say it one more time. I want the baddest man on the planet.
Chris Jericho just got his wish.
Freshly squeezed, homogenized,
And apparently the baddest man on the planet.
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite podcast. This is actually a really special edition. As you can see, we have Phil on camera. He's live with us. Our buddy AJ isn't with us today. He's got a couple of issues going on, so we just want to send some love out to AJ, make sure he's doing all right. But while he's out, we have Phil holding down the fort, and we are not down to just two. We have Phil's girlfriend, Kira. Kira's pretty new to professional wrestling. I think, Kira, you just started watching wrestling like as a fan when AEW started up, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's some references that I can remember sometimes, like the Hardy Bros. I remember as a child that I would watch WWE with my brother, so I'm not totally, like, ignorant to what's happening, but, like, sometimes I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and well, sometimes it's really cool to get that perspective. We've had Phil mention you plenty of times on past episodes, so we felt like it was finally time to bring you on and get your opinion on the show and sort of get just a totally different perspective, I think, than any of us on the show, because we've all kind of been wrestling fans for a long time. We have kind of a more critical thought process on it, maybe higher expectations at times. So it's cool to get your point of view, and you've actually been right on quite a few things over the last couple weeks, last week, and you were right at the pay-per-view. We mentioned that was really cool when you thought Taz was going to win the ladder match. You weren't spot on there, but it was a close call, something that people didn't see coming. So it's really cool to have you on, and we're excited. And hey, we're missing out on AJ, but we got something different, so it's good.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you guys want to get to before we jump into the show, or we can just go ahead and talk about Dynamite? Phil, you think anything we should cover for her as like being a new fan for listeners, or do you think we got it all covered?
No, I feel the best way to jump into it is to just jump into it, and we'll go to it as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's kind of how Dynamite started this week. They jumped right into the AEW Tag Team Championship match. That was really exciting. This wasn't a match that I had a whole lot of high hopes for in terms of like who I thought would win or who I thought would lose, because we have Hangman Page and Kenny Omega defending against Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc. It doesn't really leave a lot of speculation as a fan unless they do some type of crazy upset. But the match itself really delivered, right?
I thought it really delivered. I'm always sitting here every week complaining about matches where I feel like I know who's gonna win, and the matches don't live up to it. It doesn't get me into it because I know who's gonna win. This was a match where I knew who was going to win, and it still entertained me nonetheless. I thought Havoc and Sabian did a good job getting offense in, looking legitimate, even though you knew they weren't going to win. They shined tonight. They got good offense in. The one critique I have about their team is they don't have a name. For Omega and Page, it makes sense because they are two different entities in themselves.
At the same time, though, I'm sorry, I think they should also have a name, because I think it's weird when a lot of them are coming out with the same song and they have their name, and then they're like the only ones that come out by themselves with a different name. I mean, yeah, a different name and a different song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not really together.
Well, I thought it was interesting tonight that Sabian and Havoc have been established for the past basically month as a tag team. They weren't by now like I wasn't expecting a name. I feel like a name is kind of like a thing you throw on television, but just to come out together now that they've been like an established team, they beat a former championship team. It felt like it would be nice if they came out as a team. They didn't tonight. I felt like when Sabian had his match on the pay-per-view, they came out as a team. But tonight, when they were challenging for the tag title contendership, they didn't come out as a team, and that was confusing to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really subtle inconsistencies in the storytelling.
Yeah, I have to agree, and it's kind of interesting too when you look at it. Like with Kenny and Hangman as separate entities, they're still at about the same level they are as a tag team. But with Kip and Havoc, they've really established themselves more as a tag team than they did as singles competitors. So you would think they would want to come out as a team. Separating them in this way kind of just holds them back, I'd have to say. So, but the match itself, like I said, was really impressive. I was surprised at what they gave Havoc and Sabian in terms of just they really looked good. But obviously, Kenny and Hangman retaining the titles was the best choice here.
I felt like the two title matches in the show tonight were very similar in the fact that you knew you thought was going to win. But I felt like this match in particular, the challenger got more offense in that was believable than the actual main event, which was kind of disappointing to me. It felt like the challengers in this match got more believable offense in than the main event.
Yeah, and I could see that argument for sure. It makes sense, and it is. I think that it just comes down to with the main event. I would have liked to see more for Jungle Boy. I think in terms of this, they did a good job kind of at establishing Havoc and Sabian. I hope they continue with it because going into this match, I really didn't have I didn't give them a whole lot of credit as a team. I don't know if you guys thought of them like as much, but I really didn't, and I thought their win was kind of fluky. So to go into this match and kind of have a good match, it does make me want to see them continue on as a team.
Yeah, especially since they, for some reason, never established that they were a team, and then all of a sudden they kind of just became a team, and for some reason it works, and I don't even know why, but it just does. And like I just want to say, like, Penelope is, like, the baddest bitch. Like, there's no other, like, woman is going to just jump into a male's match like that. No fear at all. Just right off the top.
That is
what
cool.
Makes it exciting.
It's cool,
Yeah.
and that's a perspective we probably wouldn't have gotten before, but it's cool to see that from you, because it's true. Like, for especially, and, like, I don't want to sound, like, wrong or anything, but from the women's wrestling fan base, like we don't get that with the three of us. So from your perspective, it's cool to see like Penelope is making a difference with those fans, and when we do eventually get fans back, the things that she is doing in these matches with the guys is eventually going to help her as a singles competitor, and that's not something I really took into account. But it's true, and the same thing with that ladder match. Like she was her moment was a big moment in that ladder match, and so that carries over into her being a singles competitor.
Yep.
They also had the Best Friends and FTR watching on from the crowd, so I thought that was cool to sort of highlight that they've got the Best Friends looking forward to their match coming up, and FTR obviously they have something going on with the Young Bucks, but still motivated to become tag team champions at some point down the line too. We follow. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying the tag team division is getting really competitive and deep. I mean, it always was competitive and deep, but even now, you add more tag teams to the mix, especially with Sabian and Havoc. Even though they lost tonight, they've established them as a thing. I mean, these guys weren't really doing anything as singles competitors. It's not like they're going to be showcased anytime soon as singles competitors, so why not throw them into a tag team that kind of works? That's why I'm saying you should give them a name, give them some establishment, because it feels like a long-term investment that these guys are going to be a tag team and they work together well. Give them a name, and it's going to work out great, because as singles competitors, it wasn't really doing it for me now at this point in their careers.
Well, let's talk about a singles competitor who's definitely not doing it right now for me in his career. We follow this matchup with a video segment for Tully Blanchard is talking to Shawn Spears. He's apparently laying it into him, and hands Shawn Spears a fingerless glove. Just a weird segment. I don't know what this
Yeah.
is to what this means.
I I was just like, is that it? It's a glove. I thought it was like some weird like analogy to like what's that movie? Oh no. You know what I'm talking about? Whatever.
No.
And they just show the chest, but they don't show what's in it.
And
I was-
Kill Bill. Kill Bill.
No, not Kill Bill.
No, Kill Bill. They show the container of what everybody's fighting
No,
for.
it's with John Travolta and like.
It's Pulp Fiction, brother.
There you go,
Pulp
yeah.
Fiction. Pulp Fiction. They open the briefcase. All the characters are fighting for it. They never show what it is,
Yeah.
and it's up to the viewer's interpretation
So I
of what's
was
in the
like,
thing.
Oh, cool. What's in the kit? And he pulls out a glove, and I'm like, this is magically gonna
This is
make
it.
him be a better wrestler and win more? I don't see the.
See,
I just
Anyway,
don't. I don't like the whole stop and start thing we get with Sean Spears. So many times I've been willing to, and me and Phil are definitely not fans of Sean Spears. Never really have
where's
been.
AJ? Where's AJ?
Yeah. Well, Sean Spears has been wrestling for a long, long time and has sort of his own little underground fan base like that AJ falls into. And he's certainly not alone in that, but people had high expectations kind of for Spears going into AEW. And me and Phil have given him kind of an opportunity here and there where we're like, oh, he might, they're kind of grooming him to be something more than he is. And he had a good match with Cody. Since then, he hasn't done a lot. He lost in the tournament. We thought, oh, they're rebuilding him, giving him wins. And then they rebuild him to have that match on the pay-per-view with Dustin, and it's the most awful match I've seen. And they follow it up with this. It's like, it's rough.
It was confusing that they had him stand on equal ground with Cody, taking all those crossroads. And then he's beaten in 5 minutes by the very same brother that Cody beat in that very emotional match a year ago that was so critically acclaimed. You know, it was just, you knew it was a throwaway match, and they didn't do anything to throw you off that track. Everybody knew that it was a throwaway match. This segment is weird because the very obvious, more interesting storyline is him finding a tag team partner that will vibe with him. Obviously, he's never found that partner. If this is the new storyline, that his partner is a leather glove, like I don't know what it is, but I feel like that's the point, because AEW they don't like to give you the storyline in 1 week. They like to drag it out over the course of 2 or 3 weeks.
So he'll get
And
another glove next week and then a mask the next week.
You don't know, man. You know, you might be saying at the end of this, a lot of the times we are skeptical about what direction they're going in, and then weeks from now you'll be praising the thing.
That's happened to us
Really
quite
don't.
a few times, and a couple times with Sean Spears. But the thing I will say is the amount of damage they've done to his character. If they're able to reestablish him as something important again, then they're doing a hell of a job, dude. Because you can't go from having Tully Blanchard on the front of your crotch to somehow being an established character just from having a fingerless glove, you know? So I'm with you. We could be wrong, but I am super skeptical on this one.
Yeah.
After that promo, we just got a short video package covering both the Jericho and Tyson situation and then the debut on Dynamite for Brian Cage. This was just leading up, obviously, to Cage come and do the same thing as he did last week. He beats up Sean Dean. This was a very quick win for Cage once again. He looks very dominant. I like this still. People are kind of, I guess, getting tired of the consistent formula that they're doing with a quick win from a big guy. But it works, I'd say.
I think they did that with Lance Archer too. They just threw in like little guys, make him look like he's tough, and then you're a little bit scared of him maybe, and then we'll see what happens when he finally competes against a real big person like Mox, right? He's gonna fight Moxley for the championship title. That is gonna be an exciting match.
Yes, Brian Cage is supposed to fight John Moxley. It's going to be a good match. I thought, again, just like last week, the squash match with Brian Cage did his job. the person he was fighting against didn't get many offense, if any.
Hmm.
He destroyed him. It looked convincing.
It was quicker than this
He
match.
beat the shit out of that man, and just watching it, you knew he beat the shit out of him.
Hmm.
And the segment afterwards even built up to it really greatly. I thought everybody talked very well. It was a good segment.
Hmm.
But the match itself, short, sweet, to the point, exactly what you would want out of somebody who you're trying to build up to be a contender for the world title.
Oh yeah, I have to agree, and I do agree though that it is kind of a repetitive formula. We've seen the same thing with Brody. We've seen the same thing like Kira said with Lance Archer. But with each guy, they do have a little bit of a different move set to them, so it's not like we're seeing the exact same match. We're kind of seeing different, exciting moves. I will give Cage a lot of credit. His finish, that they call it the drill claw, but whatever it is, his finishing move that he hit, he took his time to hit it because I feel like he was trying to be as safe as he possibly could with Shawn, because it's kind of a dangerous move, like honestly.
It looked very dangerous.
Yeah. So, like, and in actuality, like, it's a move that, if done improperly, could leave someone potentially paralyzed. So it's good to see Cage, like, he's someone who, me and Phil and AJ, we've seen Brian Cage come up through the independent wrestling scene probably for the last 10 years, honestly. And when he first started out, he was a little bit more rough around the edges, kind of like we've seen with Nyla Rose and people who are a little bit green, as we may say, where they're just not super fine-toned in wrestling, and he didn't injure people, but it was really close. It was really close. And now he's at a point where you feel totally comfortable with him doing these moves and throwing people around because he's done it enough and is super safe with it. So it's something I notice as a fan and really enjoy. And like Phil said, the aftermatch promo was really good. It did its job at highlighting this matchup. Taz has been a great addition to just having managers in AEW. It's something I really like.
I would like to see Brian Cage talk more, though. Like, I know that, like, Taz is his manager, but I think he's doing all his talking, and I never heard Brian Cage's voice. I'm a person who's never watched, like, him anywhere else other than here, and I'm like, can he not talk for himself? Like, he's so tough, like, what is he? But, like, then I saw him, like, actually verbally having that argument with Moxley when he came in on the stage the way he did, and they were talking, but not really on the mic, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's fair. It's something that we should probably see at some point, is Cage at least do a little bit of speaking for himself, even if it's short. I think we've gotten that a couple of times with Archer, where he doesn't say a lot, but he says,
tonight we got that.
He says a couple things, and we're like, okay, this is good. Like, he can speak for himself. He's not just somebody's lackey or anything like that. He can do business for himself as well. So yeah, I do agree. But at the same time, like, a Moxley versus Taz promo battle is essentially what we're getting. It's really, really good. And it's something to appreciate, because sometimes in wrestling, like, if Brian Cage was just talking for himself, it probably wouldn't be as good, because he doesn't give as good of, like, promos and interviews. But it works out, and so when he does eventually speak, it should mean more than if he were to just do it by himself.
I feel like AEW does a really good job at pairing monster heels with people who can speak for them.
And it makes sense, yeah.
The thing with Lance Archer, the thing with Brian Cage, both of them are really, really good pairings, and they are similar characters, but they're also very unique at the same time, so you don't feel like you're getting oversaturated with, like, monster heels. And you could easily do so if you don't see the differences between their characters, because they are so similar. But my main point is that the fact that they pair these guys up with, like, such random managers, you wouldn't even expect it to happen on paper, but then it happens, and it's so good that it makes sense, and you want to see more of it.
Yeah, like, I didn't know them at all until, like, they came out into the camera world, I guess, if that makes sense. And it makes sense to me, and, like, I don't even really know them as well as you guys do, so I think that's pretty cool.
That's just the natural chemistry between them.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. And talking about Jake Roberts and Lance Archer, they they were the next segment on the show. This was kind of a short segment, but it was still pretty sweet. We had Lance Archer assaulting someone over a freeway pass. He then goes on to say that he's a monster and not a spot monkey, and then just reiterates the fact that everyone dies. Jake Roberts apologizes to the guy who was doing the interview. So for once, Roberts is the one who's saying sorry. So this was pretty cool. It's cool to see, like we said earlier, Archer is his own person still. Like, Roberts isn't controlling him. He's like, oh shit.
It almost seemed like Jake Roberts was like scared and regretted his life choices. Like, he just was like, what have I created? You know, like that's how I took it as.
No, yeah, that's cool. And it's cool. What do you think of it, Phil?
It was interesting to see Jake Roberts in a different light there. You know, usually he's antagonizing Lance. He wants him to be more violent. And in this random scenario with Alex Marvez, he was like, I am so sorry that this has happened. He was throwing the random luchador. I'm sure somebody knows what his name is. He's just a random guy. He's never wrestled a match in AEW. He's throwing him around, fucking him up on the side of a highway. It fit Archer's character, and I'm glad, and I really am glad that they threw Archer in here this week, because they didn't do that last week. And, you know, you don't have to have him come out and beat up some random no-name guy every week. Just getting him camera time is fine, because like I said earlier, there are so many similar characters: Brody, Cage, Archer, these monster heels that are supposed to all be taking this similar, like, character on. It's good that they all established them in different ways tonight. Every single one of those guys I just listed appeared on television tonight, and it was all very unique.
Yeah, and it's cool the way that they set it up and the way that they do that. So I have to agree with you 100%. I don't know if they really hit the nail on the next one. The next segment, we have Matt Hardy. He had helped out Private Party last week. So we get a video package of that, and then he shows up to where Private Party's drinking. He puts them over. He says that a lot of guys helped him when he was young, and he offers to help them with anything that they need. And they ask him to join up with them and become a team called the Hardy Party. This is fun a little bit. Matt Hardy ends up seeing Sammy Guevara at the end and says they're cool. So this is all kind of strange, but apparently this is the Hardy Party. I don't know if he's going to now be grouped up with them all the time, but it's weird.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it was strange, but it was also fun, and you're like, it makes you want to be interested because it's a different thing. They've been showing the same people every week, and they haven't shown Private Party in a while, so maybe it'll bring some different something into the show, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
What about you?
With the Hardy Party, I thought it was a cute little segment. You know, you don't really hear Private Party talk that much. I don't know if it's because they don't think they're good promos or like they just don't have the confidence in them. I thought it was really strange timing that we're gonna establish a trio here between these three characters and then have Mark Quinn fight the winner of the TNT title match next week. And I also thought, like, who determines who of the Private Party gets that little promotion? Like, you know you're not going to win next week.
The TNT.
But who gets that exclusive, like, that slot in the match? You know, that 12-minute match against an established star like Cody.
I agree with you 100%, but at the same time, I love that fact. We'll just talk about the Mark Quinn thing right now.
Random?
No, well, because Mark Quinn is someone who on like the internet, I would say, or wrestling Twitter especially.
I would agree 100%. Even before you make your point, he is definitely the better member of the two.
Oh well, yeah, and he just kind of fits
that
same group of like the Jungle Boys and the MJFs, and he really hasn't gotten that opportunity as a solo guy. So this should be really cool for him. But the segment itself, overall, it was fun, like you guys said. I just am still kind of bummed in the thing, like with Matt Hardy, we haven't really seen the full potential of what he does in these type of segments where he really gets into his character.
I just feel like Matt Hardy doesn't have a true foil to go against.
It's
Like Jericho is matched up with Tyson right now. Like who is Matt Hardy supposed to face off against? Jake Hager? Like who is
I just
the
can't
natural
believe they
opponent?
haven't done any of like the Hardy compound stuff or anything like that.
Yes, I'll
That
agree with that.
and
Yeah,
I thought they
it's
were
a perfect
going
time
there
to do
with
it.
Sammy at one point, so that's kind of where him seeing Sammy in the hallway and just being like, "Oh, we're cool." I'm like, man, we're just never gonna get any of the really cool stuff you guys tease, huh? Like, so, but at the same time, who knows where they could go with this Hardy Party thing? Like you said about a couple of segments, it's something that we have to wait and see, and then we end up really being entertained by it in a couple weeks. They're just kind of setting the tone for it now. It probably will set up to some situation of the Hardy Party versus the Inner Circle, just with Sammy being involved. I don't know that for sure, but it seems like it. Who else could this trio go up against?
Nobody. That's what I was saying. Not a soul.
them and Matt Hardy is the trio you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
so probably some
Um,
Inner Circle pairing.
I don't know. I think
Proud and Powerful and Jake Hager, and that's that's
Yeah,
it.
or Proud and Powerful and Sammy, you know.
Yeah, Sammy has been. I think the Sammy thing, honestly, is something deeper than that because
yeah, like almost as if he
Sammy
is
is
trying to pull Sammy out, and like Sammy's like, I don't know.
Sammy
Yeah.
is the kind of character that doesn't really like fit into the whole stable scenario right now. Everybody has a key role. Jake Hager is the hired gun. Jericho is the main figure. Proud and Powerful is the tag team.
Hmm.
With Sammy, it's like,
He's just the
what is
obnoxious
his
young
role?
boy.
Yeah, he's just kind of he has no role right now.
And he kind of loses a lot.
He does he is the fall man a lot.
Like we
now.
saw.
That's almost his
He's-
position right there.
That is
He's-
the gimmick that he yeah.
And he's going against Cole Cabana next week. You immediately saw that and you said,
Yeah,
okay, Cole Cabana's
the first
gonna get his
that's what
win.
I said. I
Redeem himself from this
she
past
quoted
match.
me. She quoted me very well. I said I saw the Colt Cabana Sammy Guevara match next week, and I said Colt is gonna get his win back next week for sure, because it just makes sense.
Yeah, and if he doesn't though, and if Sammy wins, it'll be kind of shocking.
It'd be surprising, just like
Yeah.
Sabian and Havoc against SCU last week. I watched that match. I was disinterested because I thought I knew who was gonna win, and they threw me a curveball.
Mhm.
Maybe they would do that again.
Yeah, you never
I don't
know.
think so.
We did
Um,
get we did.
Guys-
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But okay, I just know that like you guys probably remember the Hardy Bros more than me because you might be a little older. But like I remember liking them, and I'm like wondering, were they really like does Private Party really take you back and remind you of the Hardy Brothers?
No.
Together?
No,
Like,
if
I
anything,
thought
they
that was
would-
interesting.
They would
And
remind
Seth-
me of the Young Bucks, who then would remind me of the Hardy Boys. But
Yeah.
the Private Party doesn't really remind me of any team really, and that's a good thing
Yeah.
for them in all honesty. But yeah, I'd say they're much more similar
Dude,
to
I
the Young
like-
Bucks
I
than the
like-
Hardys, as weird as that might all sound.
I like the
Yeah.
Private
No, I
Party
understand.
promo tonight because they seemed like fanboys and they're young enough to have that role be believable.
Yeah.
If you saw a 35-year-old man marking out for Matt Hardy, you would roll your eyes at that and be like, man,
Yeah.
that's stupid.
Like they seem like kind of like maybe
Yeah,
our age or
that-
a little
yeah.
older, and like they
A little
maybe
younger
grew
probably at
up
this
watching.
point.
Yeah.
I don't know how old they are. Sorry.
They are very young. They're very young, very green. So
Yeah.
having them mark out for Matt Hardy like that, it was totally believable for me.
Mhm, me too. I would be psyched. I even know them.
Until Jeff comes to
Right.
AEW.
So like it's an interesting pairing, and it could be fun. It should be fun. We followed that segment up with a quick video recap, just showcasing Cody winning the TNT title, declaring that he'll defend it every week. Then we see how Jungle Boy became the first #1 contender. So this was just a cool, short little segment, hyping up the main event match, which I liked. I noted that on Twitter. It's nice to see them just building up to the main match on the show. Like, let's get everyone excited for what comes at the very end of tonight. And so I appreciated that much, at least.
Mhm.
I really much liked this hype video but at the same time, the fact that they focused so heavily on Cody, it was an 80-20 split on Jungle Boy. It's focused so heavily on Cody that I expected that they were going to do a Jungle Boy promo at some point before the title match at the end of the night, and they really never ended up doing that.
Because Cody.
it was
What are you
primarily a Cody, how he got the path to the title when he came out on the last show and said that he was going to defend against random people, and that's apparently the case.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I think also if it was like Moxley or like for the Moxley versus Brian Cage, they're probably going to show a lot of Moxley just because he's the champion. I think that's probably what they're
But
showing.
at the
more.
same time, that is the main title. This is supposed to be the title that is a secondary.
Yeah.
well, and the thing is, Jungle Boy really didn't do a whole lot in that battle royal to showcase, you know?
Exactly.
Like that.
It wasn't like he was a dominant force.
Yeah, that's kind of my biggest thing is just that he didn't do a whole lot
It
in
didn't.
terms of
It
highlighting
didn't
him
make
from
him
that.
It didn't make him into a star like we were begging for him, especially as a character. To make him into a star, there's not that defining moment where you're like, oh, that's when that guy became a star. That's when that guy became an established character.
Who, Cody?
No, Jungle Boy.
Oh.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I just like the fact that they, at the very least, are hyping up this title and making it seem important, putting it in the main event slot, giving it a video to hype up the main event match. And hopefully we get this treatment every week. That's something that has to happen in order to get that feeling of legitimacy with the championship, is promoting it every week and treating it as if it, like, you can't next week go and have it not be the main event just because it's
And
Mark
be the
Quinn.
fucking opener.
Yeah.
Because that's something I could see them doing, is throwing it on the opener because it's a title match. And
Yeah.
they like to open with their main event as opposed to close the main event.
Yeah, so I just think that it would be smart to continue to put it on in the main event, and it would do a whole lot for Mark Quinn to be in the main event next week. Like, it would and in turn then helps Private Party as a team because one of the members looks so good. So after that, we get a short little promo again recapping Jericho versus Tyson. Then we get Jericho taking on Colt Cabana, and it was a fine match. It was just short and sweet. I really liked the finish where Colt got rocked with the Judas effect. But Colt got a lot more offense in this match than Phil would have liked, right, Phil?
That is true, man. It was one of those matches where you have a champion or a champion caliber person who should have their shit in. They win in a short time over an opponent, and it should be good. I thought it was a little long for my taste, but at the same time, they've gone out of their way to make Colt Cabana look like a formidable opponent. They made Colt Cabana look good, so if they want him to be like an upper mid-card face, this is the way to do it. Though I disagree with it, that is a proper way to book this match, and it wasn't bad by any means. It wasn't offensive. It was just a little long for my taste.
I think that shows how much they're trying to show how, I guess, strong Colt Cabana is, that he can go that long with him. You know what I mean? Like, because Jericho is like the big, he's light champion. I mean, you know, he beats a lot of people up.
Well, and he's
it
only
was-
had so many matches this year.
Yeah,
and his
I would
last singles
say-
match, he beat Pineapple Pete in a minute. So, like, that's very, very different than what we got here. And even the match prior to that, I think, was the Jungle Boy match. And that was the 10-minute, like, that was a 10-minute time limit match. So here, I want to say Colt got right around that time. And that kind of means something because of how they promoted that Jungle Boy match. So, yeah, I think they did a lot. They continue to make Colt seem like an important character, much to Phil's dismay.
No, I even before the show, I thought at first that this was a throwaway match, but at the same time, I thought that Jericho hasn't really won in a while. I mean, it feels like he has because he's such a prominent character, but hasn't won a singles match in a long time. Colt Cabana is a character that they've been building up for a while. He got equal time with them. It was a good match. It elevated both stars. I can't really complain about either of the outcomes here.
Yeah, absolutely not. And then the post-match promo, which is what we opened up the show with, I thought that was pretty interesting as well. It didn't necessarily, it wasn't a home run for me because it was kind of a little bit kooky, but it was fun. Like, we end up, Jericho's calling out Mike Tyson. He wants to fight Mike Tyson tonight, which I thought was really interesting. In wrestling, the heel never does that. He never says, I want to fight you right now. He says, I want to fight you at the pay-per-view, or I want to fight you in a while. Instead, calling out Mike Tyson to fight right away. Obviously, Mike Tyson isn't going to show up on just a random episode of Dynamite, but it's cool. It adds something to Jericho's character, and obviously we get Orange Cassidy, of all people, coming out, which pissed Jericho off, but I loved it, and Sammy Guevara's face during this was great.
Mm-hmm.
So they did a great job here, sort of setting up whatever feud they have going on between Jericho and Orange Cassidy, and this should be a fun one.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's almost like the opposite because he's just so like laid back, and it's like why of all people Orange Cassidy, but it makes for some good entertainment.
I feel like they're capitalizing off of, as much as I hate to see these things and I have to sit there every week and watch them, how much the audience fluctuates between every segment. And consistently, it seems like Orange Cassidy has that kind of segment, even though he doesn't really do it for me. Like, I respect him, and I enjoy his segments. I'm not looking forward every week to an Orange Cassidy kind of thing. But when you look at the audience, the numbers of who is tuning in when he's on television and not, pairing him with Jericho before the Tyson thing is a good move because you want a lot of eyes on the Jericho-Tyson thing, and you don't want to pay Tyson to show up every single week and build up a blow-off to a 5-minute match or whatever the end game is here.
Do you think he's going to come on the show and knock him out again?
I don't think he's gonna physically. I don't know, man. I don't think, honestly, at the very root of it, I don't think he's gonna have a physical confrontation at Jericho at all. But at the same time, I think that a 5-minute match between Jericho and Tyson, just dicking around, not really being too serious, it's gonna be good television. But I don't know what the logical outcome of this is going to be. And that's why when I saw it for the first time, I was like, what is the end game of this? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And maybe that is the appeal of this segment, of this whole storyline, is you don't know where it's going to go. But it's going to get attention, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and this is, you have to imagine that situation between Jericho and Tyson was probably one of the, like, the media covered that the most. And then outside of that, we kind of see Orange Cassidy a lot in terms of like social media, or he sometimes even pops up on like random Sports Center clips and stuff because he just does such wild shit that, and it's like in the mainstream audience, it's kind of cool. Like he's one wrestler from AEW that I know for a fact my younger teenage brothers can recognize that they didn't know before AEW started, just because they're like, oh, that's the cool guy. Like, and they know him for that. And like Phil said last week, Orange Cassidy got some of the highest ratings for AEW in general. They had Joseph. Shout out to Joseph, the big AEW hater in our group chat. He mentioned the fact that Orange Cassidy had 1 million people tuned in last week, which is really dope. Like, that's one of the higher numbers AEW has pulled, and for an Orange Cassidy segment. It was a short Orange Cassidy segment, I want to say, but it still, nonetheless, does a lot for Orange Cassidy, and we can see a big future for him. And I think that's why he's working with Jericho. Like, that's at least how I feel about it. Like, I see what you're saying in terms of they want all eyes on the Tyson versus Jericho thing, but I think they want to continue to elevate Orange Cassidy as some type of cult superstar. Like, it's weird. It doesn't work for everybody, but he's super popular. Like, you have to continue to capitalize on it. And pairing him with Jericho is a smart way to do that.
Yeah. I thought it was funny when he put his hands in his belt because he didn't have, like, pockets. And he just let him do it. He just let him touch his hands and put them in his belt for some reason.
He just doesn't
So
take
weird.
him seriously. And then when they get that match going and Orange Cassidy actually gets going, and that's the fun part of Orange Cassidy is he
Mhm.
can really wrestle a good match. So when we get to see him versus Jericho, that's going to be fun. I hope they plan on doing that for Fighter Fest. They talked about that quite a bit throughout the show. I think they
Mm.
previewed it actually right after this, saying that Fighter Fest was going to be a 2 week thing. They're going to do it on July 1st and July 8th. It'll be on Dynamite or part of Dynamite, so you don't have to pay for that show. That's great. But it looks like they're going to absolutely stack those cards. We obviously have matches already announced for the show, so it's cool to have something to look forward to just on a regular televised special.
Mhm. Yep.
We then get an update on Britt Baker. She rolls out in her new wheelchair. It's the Rolls Royce, which
Mhm.
was this was fun. Is a good way to we
It,
continue to get Britt Baker showcased on TV despite the fact that she's hurt.
yeah, I admire it that she still comes back even though she's hurt, like legitimately hurt. I used to hate her. I know Phil probably has talked about how much I hate her because like I wish there was just like one good like literal role model on the show. No, like pun intended, but like I'm growing on her just because of the fact that she's just bringing some attention to the women's section. She's bringing some kind of storyline, the conspiracy thing, and just this segment I really actually did like. It was really cute. They were all like cheering for her at the end. Like Tony was there, like she was like happy to see him, and they're like all rooting for her to work out and get better again. It was cute.
What do you think of it, Phil?
I also thought it was really good. I don't understand the Tony and Britt kind of relationship they
I don't
have.
either.
I don't know why. If we're gonna sit there and believe that the tags and Darby Allen thing was connected, which it proved to be later on in the show, if we're gonna believe that that's a connected storyline, like what is the Shivani Britt Baker storyline? Like, what's going on there? Like, is there a payoff?
No,
Does
it's just I
anybody
feel like
care?
it's just like a
It's
running
just fun.
story.
It's just fun.
It's just fun, man, and it's
And
like a
it could
running
be
story
like
that'll
I'm
last
not
for a
even,
while.
I'm not gonna be offended by it, but I just would like to know
Shivani?
Tony Schiavone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just gonna be like a long running storyline, kind of like it's not never going to be a main storyline, but just always like just a side quest kind of that's always there between two characters where they have this weird thing going on between them, and I really like it, and it's something they kind of struck gold with in a way because it is fun just seeing the interaction between the two and the way that Tony reacts, and who knows at some point it could like because she is starting to grow like a fan base where she's not necessarily supposed to because she's supposed to be a bad guy where if she
Yeah.
does eventually just like beat the shit out of Tony, people will then really turn on her, like
Oh my god.
yeah,
Do
you
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 think that's
wouldn't
gonna
like that.
happen?
I don't know, but you never know. um
I think after that segment, after seeing him like being there and cheering her on and working out with like seeing her like I don't know, just them together in the end of that video, maybe she won't. Like maybe they're friends, but she's just like the mean kind of friend where she bullies him, but she
I
does
get
Wants
that
it.
him
make
to
sense?
succeed.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, and it works. It works in a lot. They do it in movies and TV shows all the time. So why not do it in
Mhm.
wrestling? Like it definitely works.
Yeah.
Um, After this, we get a match between Big Swole and Nyla Rose. This was what Britt Baker was wheeled out for, so she could watch this match. I liked this match, but we obviously get a win for Nyla Rose here. This was one I mentioned to Phil in our group chat that I think if they had built it up over time, and it was something I thought they were doing before the whole pandemic hit because we were seeing Big Swole a lot. If they had built Big Swole up and gave her a lot of dominant wins before facing Nyla Rose, this could have been a really like epic match because Big
I
Swole
agree.
is pretty cool. Nyla's like they're both kind of badasses. So if we get that, if they built it up in that way, it could be great. Instead, it was just kind of a regular match, but that still leaves the potential to eventually build up to that epic match down the line.
Yeah. I feel like you were absolutely right. They could have built her character up, and then this pandemic happened, and then they just decided to focus all on the men's storylines and forget all about the women's. We see like one women's match a week. And I know I've said this before, and Phil's brought it up on my behalf sometimes, but like there still needs to be more women. I don't know if it's because women are just not, I don't know what you do, audition or like apply, but like they need to somehow get some more women. And like earlier we were talking about tag teams, like I wish there was some more like women's tag teams. I know they've had tag team matches, but if there was just like one or two women that just became friends and we just saw it and they were like an actual tag team, that would just be really cool. It would be a really big step up for their division.
That is true. Like they don't have to have a women's tag team division, but to have women's talent who tag with each other often, it would be a big step up for Big Swole. Obviously, she's in the bottom 5, looking into the top 4 with Rose, Statlander, Britt Baker,
Penelope.
Sheeta, and Penelope. You know, obviously she's in the bottom tier there, but you can. I thought tonight would be kind of a stepping stone for her to join that elite group. And I thought, even at the end of the day, I thought the right woman won, and she did. And Swole did a good job to be on the same level as a championship contender like Rose did. But you have to build off this, because one week showcase isn't enough for me.
Yeah, I think that they're trying, especially since then they did that little segment at the end where Britt came rolling in with the truck and started having a drama fight kind of thing. Maybe something will happen there and she'll be shown more.
It does seem like they're sort of building up to something like that. Maybe Britt will just consistently be a pest for Big Swole going forward until Britt can come back. It was a segment that kind of fell flat because they definitely had Big Swole in a position where she could have exacted her revenge and hit Britt Baker with that chair when she was sitting there, but she didn't. She chose to wait a minute and give Britt time to retreat. So it looked a little bit silly. But it's good to see that they're doing more in terms of not just one feud for the women, because obviously Nyla's going to be paired up with Sheeta again. They cut to Sheeta plenty of times during this match to let us know what's coming. But it's cool that Big Swole has something lined up for herself too.
Yeah, and I think that her taking that step back, not hitting her right away with the chair, showed that like she's the good guy in the situation at the same time, because we know that Britt Baker is the bad guy and like maybe Big Swole is a good guy.
For sure, but she did almost get run over, so maybe you hit someone with the chair for that.
Yeah,
but I do agree with you for sure.
Mad about that, yeah.
But it's cool, and I like the perspective of just the idea like for women to be teaming up more, because we see a lot of just fatal 4-way matches with the women. Why not just pair them up?
Or singles team, or singles action between two characters that have no charisma between each other.
Yeah, and they will have those team matches where they have, where they had Chris Statlander and Sheeta on a team together, I think, right? But
yeah, because they're good guys. They're good guys.
But there wasn't like any kind of story or at least a little background history, like something. It was just, here's a match, they're on a team, and like with the men's, we see all the drama and everything happening, and
yeah, that would be cool, and hopefully them, because you do notice the pairings that they try to. It seems like Hikaru Shida teams up with Statlander somewhat. It seems like they are trying to build up like a record base to look back at in case they do, because they've talked about it potentially introducing a women's tag team titles down the line. They would obviously have to establish more women's tag teams, but at least having these teams that pair up somewhat consistently is good. But they do definitely need to do more with it.
Yeah. But in all, I think I really did like. I liked the match with Nyla and Big Swole. I knew that Nyla was gonna win, but I knew that it would be a good fight, because I remember Big Swole being a pretty good fighter. She like doesn't get taken down very easily,
Yeah, and they presented that well. I've said it a couple of times. You see it with AEW sometimes where it's a match they could do again in the future, so they don't give you everything. So it's not like a 5-star spectacular. But eventually, if they go back to this match, I could see it being really impressive. And this was just a good showcase of that.
Yeah, I mean, she pinned her a few times. She even like just straight up fearlessly headbutted her with, it's crazy against Nyla Rose. Like she's pretty scary. She's got that big. She just got like a great like personality. She's got that like outfit that is just all put together. She like makes it seem like she's very, I don't know what the word is, but like just all
Dominant.
put
Yeah,
together.
she's
Dominant. She's in a good way. Like she's.
And it was cool because the way that Nyla picks up the victory, it's not Nyla's normal finishing maneuver either. It was kind of like out of nowhere. So it does a little bit to show like it wasn't just it was kind of a surprise win almost, like Nyla just barely picked up the win. So that does help Swole a lot. So it's good that they are doing stuff for the women's division. They tried to do something for Darby Allin on this show. I didn't really get it, I guess would be the biggest way to put it. I don't know if I felt this segment.
Yeah.
We have Tony Schiavone doing an interview with Darby. It was kind of weird because Schiavone was just out in the crowd doing an interview, and then we cut to a recorded interview with the same guy. But he does his interview with Darby Allin. He says that Darby's not medically cleared after what Cage did to him. Allin says life is a big joke, but he says he'll have his last laugh on Brian Cage and Taz. So obviously setting up to something between those two, but what it could be, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously the idea would be maybe Darby costs Cage the title at Fyter Fest, but that I hope that's not just it. That's a little too simple. So.
Yeah. I feel like he's very aggressive. So, but we see. Oh, I'm sorry. We've seen like a video of him doing like have him being interviewed before, and he just says like a one-liner thing, like acting all tough, and then I don't know, and then I feel like he just gets thrown around and knocked out when the fight actually happens.
Yeah, he's very ominous, I guess you could say. Like he tries to be mysterious, and it works for him in a way, and it kind of is what adds to him is that mystique. But it is tough when they try to interview him because they just almost never hit. It's just like if you try to talk to the awkward kid in school, like it was always just an awkward conversation. So these interviews, it's kind of how they should come off, but it is still awkward.
Yeah, but I think maybe it's also the point. But I don't know, something's missing.
I feel like it's an interesting development to have you interview Darby Allin every week. And the end goal seems to be a match against Brian Cage, and Brian Cage, has a title match against Jon Moxley. Like, obviously, you expect Moxley to win that match, and at the end of the day, you expect Cage and Darby to have a contest between themselves. But it's interesting how they're gonna come to that conclusion. Obviously, that is the most logical thing that's going to happen. Obviously, with AEW, it doesn't always mean that that's the direction they're going to go in. But it seems like that's what they're going with now.
Yeah, I could see it just being even a situation where they want to set something up for Cage throughout the next month. So maybe you have Darby show up in the next week or two, challenge Cage to a match, or try and get a match set up with Cage. And then just before Fyter Fest, you have Cage get a win over Darby, something of his first significant victory over someone who has an established past in AEW, and helps elevate him going into that match with Mox. I think that could be the way they go with it, or they easily could drag this one out to where he faces Mox at Fyter Fest and then faces Darby at All Out, and we get a whole long-winded storyline here. I'm not totally sure which way they'll go, but they're definitely laying the groundwork for it in some way, shape, or form here. Depends on if Darby's really hurt, too. The fall he took at the pay-per-view was pretty nasty, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he actually isn't medically cleared.
I just can't imagine him going against Brian Cage. He's just muscle all around. Just crazy. It's just, he's just thick everywhere. And then Darby's this little man. But he's also pretty fast. He's got some weird moves.
It could be a really fun match. I think that would be really fun, and would do a lot to, like I said, elevate Brian Cage, because like you said, he's going to be able to throw Darby around a lot, but Darby's resilient, so we'll just see him getting thrown around for 15 minutes instead of 5, which will be crazy.
Yeah.
After this, we get another interview. It's between Shivani and FTR this time. This was good. Like Phil said in our group chat, he said FTR isn't necessarily known for their promo work. They're not known for it either, I would say, though, that they're, in terms of promos, they're definitely not someone that people would say are bad. But this was a solid promo and a good way to establish them wanting to come in, be a part of the tag team. They kind of ended it in a funny way with Butcher and Blade showing up, which I thought was very random. Like, they're trying to wrap up an interview, and all of a sudden the people they were just talking about happen to walk in, and they get into a big scruffle. The Blade just rips his shirt off in some nice place, too. It was funny, but they get into a scuffle. It sets up a match for next week. What do you guys think of this segment?
All I could think of at the end of that was, what did Tony say when they bleeped him out? Like, he was like, I used to think that FDR was bleep, 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 bleep. He said a lot of bleeps. Like, what did he say?
Oh, he said fuck the Revival. So, that's like an inside joke in AEW, because these two were known.
Is that what that stands for?
That's what it started to stand for. So the Revival were a tag team in WWE, but they were seen as like the best tag team in WWE, and then the Young Bucks were obviously the best tag team not in WWE. So a lot of people had speculated about if they were ever in the same company, what a great match it would be. The Young Bucks do this video series called Being the Elite on YouTube, and in it they started poking fun at the Revival by just saying FTR, essentially saying fuck the Revival, we're the best. So they had this feud going on for years without ever even being in the same company. So this was kind of their way of capitalizing on it. We have Shivani say, I always thought FTR meant fuck the Revival. They're just being tongue-in-cheek, like...
Okay, it makes so much more sense. Like, I'm sorry, you guys probably knew because you know all this, but I didn't, and I'm glad that you said that, because now it makes a lot more sense why they said, when they were bringing up a lot of tag teams, they didn't mention the Bucks when they were talking, and Tony asked them that, and then now it makes sense why, because, I mean, I don't even really like the Bucks. I think there are a lot of really great tag teams in AEW, and I actually don't like the Bucks. They're good. They work together great. I like their, when they kick together and they have their flashy little pants. That's cool. But, that's all they really do for me. That's it. Their attitude is...
I will say that it leads up to a good match for Fyter Fest. It's not like we're going to have a real established match between these two tag teams. They're both basically on the same level. They're having them face off in an equal tag team match is a good move. I really don't know who would win in that scenario. Really don't.
Yeah, so they're doing a good job at just building that up and creating a match that people can look forward to seeing. Like you said, that's one that Fyter Fest is going to sort of be built around. People will really be looking forward to that one. So they've done a good job at that, and then obviously just getting people excited for that match next week. After the segment, we get commentary just going over everything we have scheduled for next week.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? Can
go ahead.
Go back?
Yeah.
Is the Butcher and the Blade, are they just now, they wear white? Is the bunny not in it anymore? Can you talk about
the bunny kind of is just hanging out with QT Marshall. I believe she is. They haven't really explained this on television.
I think she might be
all white. They don't have masks on anymore. Allie's nowhere to be seen when they're coming out like she used to be.
It was a very short-lived kind of thing that all three of them were together.
I think they definitely tried to at least set them apart from the Dark Order, because I remember months ago we were kind of complaining about that. We were like, how many mysterious, spooky tag teams will there be? They've now narrowed it down to just one and have the Butcher and the Blade, definitely changing it up. I don't know if Allie is like trying to recruit QT Marshall or if she's just trying to cause dissension between QT Marshall. She's just trying to cause dissension between QT and Dustin. So I don't know. I think that this is like a very small scale storyline that they'll end up paying off on. Like it'll be a dark before Fyter Fest or something where we get QT and Dustin taking on the Butcher and the Blade. So not something people will care a whole lot about. But yeah, I do agree though. They've definitely changed that tag team. And it's not a bad time to, with the pandemic happening and a lot of teams not being on for months. It's a good time to where if you want to do something different and just sort of flip the switch, now is a perfect time to do it. So,
yeah, because we're just excited to see something different. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to see they changed it up. Commentaries went over what we have to look forward to next week. So we have Colt Cabana taking on Sammy Guevara, Mark Quinn getting a TNT Championship match, FTR taking on the Butcher and the Blade, and then a trios match when Santana, Ortiz, and Hager take on the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. We'll also see Jon Moxley in action on AEW Dark. So Phil, our resident AEW Dark fan, you have Mox to look forward to on Dark.
I'm glad to look forward to
I
that.
haven't watched Dark in a while. I thought they weren't even a thing.
It's just filler. It's filler wrestling now. It's to add to people's records essentially. Like there's never a match, Kira. I bet even you, 100%, and don't take that the wrong way, but even you, a new wrestling fan, could probably tell us who was going to win every match on Dark for the last month.
Yeah.
Because
for sure.
you'll be like, oh, I know this wrestler. Oh, I don't know that wrestler. This one's gonna win. So, Dark hasn't been great, and so you see the point there. Obviously, trying to push people to tune into Dark, but it's still not happening. Like Moxley's gonna win whoever he faces. So, nice try, guys. Nice try. But Dynamite looks decent next week. They continue to build the Fyter Fest, so obviously have to have a decent card. And like I said, the Mark Quinn versus Cody match is the one I'm most interested in because I said it a couple weeks ago to Phil. I want to see Cody really try and elevate some of these younger talent that people are excited about, like Mark Quinn, Jungle Boy, those type of guys. So this is how you do it. And it's a good opportunity for Mark Quinn. So that's cool and could be a really exciting match or could end up being not so great.
I don't think it's going to be so great. If I've seen a lot of Cody matches against guys who are not quite on his level in terms of booking,
and he just doesn't elevate them.
He does not. He does no. It never ends up in the scenario where that person is elevated in some level. Not seeing it.
It's not his fault, but Cody isn't a person I would say like Kenny who can have a match with someone and coming out of the match you look at him like he's a bigger star. But I will say that if you have a storyline with Cody, you will probably come out looking like a bigger star. Because once Cody gets on the mic, yeah. So I think that's where Cody helps. But in terms of just one-off matches, and that's where this TNT title thing would work so much better if it was Kenny, because he would be having these one-off matches with people, and you'd be like, holy shit, Jungle Boy just had a 4-star match on Dynamite. Mark Quinn versus Kenny. Like, these matches all sound better when you put Kenny's name there. Cody does better in storylines, but in terms of just one-off matches, I want to have hope for him every week. And it's not like they're bad, but they're just never at the level of what you should be doing if this is the story you want to do, I guess.
Exactly. You're not elevating that person to the next level.
And Kira, you're definitely not a big Cody fan, right?
I just decide not to speak on it. I mean, unless you want me to, but I just feel like I'm biased because whenever Cody's brought up, I just want to punch him in the face. And like, I feel like people only like him for the pyrotech. Like when after this match with Jungle Boy, there's just fire. It feels like, why is there fire? Why is there and I'm like, because it's Cody. He's just a douchebag. Like, he'll just do that because he can. Because he can.
I will say that's probably a little bit of an unpopular opinion. Cody is definitely super loved in the AEW community, but I can't blame you.
I don't get why. I think they're blinded by the fire and like the strong-willed heart and the turn from evil to good, like, ooh, he
Well,
broke a chair or whatever. I don't
and
know.
it is fair that the big thing about it too with Cody is just kind of his social media presence. He talks to a lot of fans. He does a lot of Q&As and stuff. And at the end of the day, that's a good way to, especially as you are becoming this huge star in a company, people appreciate that kind of stuff. So that's what's
Okay, I
worked for
get
him.
it.
And even just
I just
tossing the belt into the crowd, like that excites people. They're like, oh my God, what if I'm the one who catches it? Like,
That's so funny that you said that because today during this whole match I was like, "Oh, who's he gonna throw it to this time?" Because he's been throwing to Brandy every week, and then today Phil was like, "Look, he's doing it," and then he took it off and just threw it. He just like dropped it almost, like it didn't even look like he threw it, and Brandy wasn't even there. They came in at the end, like, were they watching off stage? Why weren't they at the ringside like they usually are? They always come out together or something, and I don't know. It's weird to
yeah,
me.
that is fair. It's almost like they didn't take Jungle Boy as seriously as they seem to take Cody's other competitors because he didn't need his whole crew there backing him up. It was just him and Jungle Boy. The match
Yeah.
itself was not bad, but again, it just didn't do a ton in terms of like I don't
To
feel like
elevate
Jungle
the
Boy is
lesser
a
lesser
star.
character.
Mhm.
No.
And the
No,
only
and I
point I
felt
thought
like-
Jungle
I
Boy
felt like-
could maybe win is because Cody bounced his head off the thing and started bleeding. But Jungle Boy was a
so
poor
stupid.
choice for the first. He was a poor choice for the first competitor, no matter what, because you just never really were gonna believe that Cody was gonna lose a week after getting it, especially not to a Jungle
that's
Boy.
the point I
Yeah.
was gonna make is that the fact that Jungle Boy was this early of a competitor, you never really bought it. Jungle Boy could be one of those guys where if you wait 3 weeks, a month, whatever, you build up the storyline, he could be somebody to beat him. And now it's what, Shawn Spears, MJF? Who could care about any of those things?
Mhm.
But with Jungle Boy, with the right amount of build up, with the right amount of stuff, it could have been something, especially winning the Battle Royal and all that. It was a strange first choice for the whole title scene, of course, because you never thought he was gonna win the first match.
It could have
Yeah,
just been someone better too. Like, he's not someone. He doesn't really elevate the title. He doesn't like because he's not super
Yeah.
established. But this match doesn't really elevate him in any way
If
either.
you're gonna throw away Shawn Spears for 2 weeks, I mean, why not just have him? They have the history. They used to be boys. He kicked out of 3 roads
Because he
whatever the
didn't have his
fuck.
glove yet. He didn't.
Yeah,
Sean Spears didn't
of
have his
course,
glove
of
yet.
course, you are right about that. The whole
Yeah.
glove thing.
I think though it goes back to what we said earlier, is that I think they need to build up the title of the TNT champion before they can change it. I mean, I feel like it's not really that big of a deal. At least to me, I'm like Cody's like bragging about it almost. He's like, I'm the best of this whole network, and it's like, so like you're not the champion. Like they gotta build up it. I mean, they gotta build it up somehow, make it seem more important than what it is, because it's a new title, and it like I don't know really what it means right now, and maybe once it's more established, maybe Jungle Boy will rematch him or something for it, or
Hopefully down the line when
It
Jungle
would
Boy
make
is
sense
like,
if we're gonna have Mark Quinn fight for the title next week, and these are the kinds of challengers that we're gonna have for the TNT title. You would hope that Jungle Boy not only challenges for it in the future, but establishes himself as a worthy contender for the title.
well, I just think, and I mentioned it earlier in a way that I like, but at the same time, I have to go almost back on it now. Like, I like that we're getting an opportunity to see Mark Quinn and Jungle Boy, people who, like I said, the internet really have like love for because they think they have potential to be big stars, but at the same time, they haven't been elevated as a team, as characters. So it's really hurt the title in a way. They're not elevated as anything. So the championship essentially loses value because the characters have lost, like they have no value. So yeah, I just think that it doesn't do a whole lot in terms of that situation for the TNT title. I think they definitely need to, after Mark Quinn, get a more legitimate challenger in there for Cody. Just someone more believable. And I think they should have, if Jungle Boy was going to look like this in this match, they should have just used the Battle Royal for someone else to be elevated.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could have.
MJF is good.
Well, even
MJF, Wardlow, either of those two guys, you could build off of.
Well,
and
if you want to give Mark Quinn a
whoever
spot,
fails at that spot, because you wouldn't expect the first person, no matter who it is, to beat Cody. The second person could beat him. Like if you want to go MJF, obvious route, he beats him on a random episode of Dynamite, and then he faces Wardlow at Fyter Fest. Makes sense. If you want to go the reverse option, he beats Wardlow again, second time outside the cage, and then he fights MJF at the pay-per-view, or the unofficial pay-per-view. It also makes sense, but whatever direction they're going in now doesn't make as much sense as either of the two scenarios that they seem to be building up to.
yeah, I think that the reason they're not immediately going with MJF or Wardlow is because Cody will be defending every week, and that's probably going to be the Fyter Fest
If
match.
it's going to
Is
be
either
against people like Mark Quinn,
yeah, well, and that's where
Who
my
cares
biggest
about that?
takeaway is if we wanted to put Mark Quinn in that TNT title match and you wanted to elevate someone with the Battle Royal, why not just have Quinn win the Battle Royal and be the first contender? Like it
Exactly.
would have done a lot more for him than it's done for Jungle Boy.
it felt like a weird scenario where
and it- and-
Jungle Boy was kind
and
of
don't get
pushed
me
there
wrong,
too fast.
Don't get me wrong, that would have been random as hell too. Mark Quinn randomly winning a singles battle royal, but it would make a
For
lot
sure.
more sense than him just being tossed into a singles title match. But nonetheless, I am still, in a way, looking forward to that match. And I think they did a good enough job here with Jungle Boy and Cody that I wasn't really mad about it. But they could have just, they could have done more for Jungle Boy, and I feel like we say that a
Yeah.
lot.
Maybe it felt like it was quick, you know? I mean, it wasn't too short, but it wasn't as long as like the first match was, and that wasn't even the main event. Like this was the main event, and it seemed to go by pretty fast.
Yeah, this is where we need our boy AJ. Shout out to him. But he's the one who times all the matches, so he would tell us exactly how long it was.
That's pretty cool.
But you're right in the fact that it did feel a lot shorter. You could feel it. I looked at the clock, and when they were doing entrances, it was about 20 minutes to the top of the hour, so they probably gave it like 14, 15 minutes to just wrestle. And for a title match, you want to see a little bit more than that, and it might have even been less than that in the whole grand scheme of things. So I think that Jungle Boy definitely, like, and they might have just timed the show out wrong and didn't really have a plan in terms of, oh shit, we only have 15 minutes left, we got to get this match in quick, which they seem to run into that issue a lot in the main event situation where you're like, wow, that match, I thought it would be longer, but they had to end the show. So I almost thought they were going to have a draw just because of how close they were to the top of the hour. So the fact that we got a finish was good. We got a big celebration at the end for Cody, obviously.
Yeah, that was
Brandy and
nice.
Dustin come out. And Jurassic Express check on Jungle Boy. So that's good. Good way to
Yeah,
close
and
the show,
even-
too.
Yeah, and even Cody, like, you know, he grabbed his hand and, like, because he's got to be, like, the good guy, and, like, he gave him a hug. I still thought it was cute. Like, it was nice, and, like, I like that Jungle Boy wasn't one of those people that were like, no, get off me. Like, he was like, no, like, good job, man. Like, and it was good sportsmanship. I like that.
Yeah, and that's a little way to, yeah, you lost, but let's do something for him. And they did do something for him, so it helped him out overall.
Yeah.
Definitely can't complain about that. Overall, it was a pretty good show, though. They closed out really well. And they at least continue to promote the TNT title well, so that's good. And they gave us something to look forward to next week and continue to build up the pay-per-view well. So, well, it's not even a pay-per-view, but the big event, we should call it, in a couple weeks.
True, big facts.
That is definitely what we have to look forward to. I don't think we have a whole lot more to cover, though. I do want to mention the fact that at the top of the show, I believe, or at some point during the show, they did do something in terms of just representing the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's cool that AEW took the time to do that.
Yeah.
Not all companies are doing stuff like that, and some companies are doing it just to sort of save face. But if you're paying attention on social media, Tony Khan said a couple things, and his dad, the owner of the Jaguars, actually had like a really long statement he put out on social media, Shad Khan,
Oh,
that was pretty
nice.
cool in terms of referencing racism and just stuff that they've dealt with, and obviously just the whole bigger picture of racism. So obviously on the All Elite podcast, we're big on that same situation, Black Lives Matter. We totally support that movement and all types of movements like that, and it's a tough time in the world. So hopefully AEW in this episode was able to sort of make people forget. That's something we've had the fortunate situation with AEW sometimes. Phil, AJ, and I have commented, especially during the pandemic, how we'd watch Dynamite and sort of forget all of the struggles that were going on in the world. But they made sure to not. We didn't forget about that one tonight. They made sure to remind us about it. So that's cool. Otherwise, that does cover everything. Have to end on a bit of a somber note, I guess, but something we have to cover. AEW did. You guys want to plug your social media? Where can people find you? Phil, we've got yours in big letters this week because you're on video, so they can find you.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, brother.
All right, so it's Philip with 2 L's, DIMINNO at hotmail.com.
If you want to send fan mail to Phil, that's where you do it.
Go for it.
I mean, I don't really post anything about the show, but if you just want to follow me, I guess, it's literally my name, Kira Slater, KEIRA _Slater, SLATER. That's my name.
Make sure you give her a follow.
Very similar.
Make sure you give her a follow so that way Phil will be super salty over the fact he doesn't get many followers from the show. He says it every time. So if Kira gets like 10, 20, 50 right away, Phil will know exactly where to go.
Yeah, and let me know if you hated or liked what I talked about today, because this is my first time ever doing anything like this, and I know I was a little nervous at some points, but I think I made some good points.
You do
and
have some good points.
Felt a little confident. So if you believe that I should be on the show every week permanently, I'm like taking over.
No, for sure. Let us know.
Oh, for sure.
Let everybody know.
Because I think after my predictions from last, I think it was the pay-per-view, last pay-per-view or something, everybody was like, if Kira gets all these right, then she should be on the show. And I was like, what, like 7 out of 10?
9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think you did a great job, and I think that you brought a lot of really good, like I said, honestly, good perspectives that we probably wouldn't think about to the show. So I definitely we would love to have you back. So I'm sure AJ would agree. So look forward to it. Next week, we will have the 4 of us. I'm not sure. I've said it plenty of times. I'm not exactly sure when AJ and I will get back to doing.
5 of us.
Who's the 5th one?
Me, right?
No, you're the 4th one.
No, because AJ.
Oh no, I'm right. No, it's me, you, Phil, and AJ. That's 4. You almost got me there. Yep, definitely 4.
Me, Phil, AJ, Andrew.
Oh shit, you're right.
Okay, sorry.
Anyways, we'll have the 4 of us next week. Like I said, I'm not sure when me and AJ will get back to the Monday shows, but in due time, when there's enough news coming from AEW every week and not a whole bunch of craziness going on in the world, we should have time for that. But until next week, you can find the podcast on Twitter at All Elite Podcast. We're on Instagram at All Elite Everything. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can hit that subscribe button, brother. If you're not, you can find us at YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.